Thank you. Thank you for your invitation, and thank you for being here. It's the first time I'm coming in the region, here in the city, and I'm very happy to be here with you and try to share with you some views about what is happening. And as we are talking almost every day about Islam, what is happening in Muslim majority countries, in the Middle East, and of course in the West, in Europe, asking the question, what is going to be the future or our common future? So I'm not coming here to talk to you as a Muslim talking to people who are coming from another culture or other country. I'm a European, as you are. I'm a Swiss by nationality. I was born and raised in Switzerland. I consider myself as a European by culture, an Egyptian by memory, a Muslim by religion, a Moroccan by adoption, a man. This is part of my identity. A universalist by principle, so I have multiple identities. And that's also something which is important, that we don't have one single identity. We have all of us, we have multiple identities. And if you look at your own history, you will see that the difference between some people that we consider as migrants and us is that we are only older migrants than they are. So the indigenous people are older migrants than the new migrants. So let us have this sense of humility when it comes to this is my home, no, this is our home. And what I was talking about, and I have been claiming that we have to come to a new we, and the new we is me talking to you as we, together, what we have to face. Now, I will talk this evening from an Islamic viewpoint to come to the singularity of dealing with Islamic challenges and challenges for Muslims today to our common challenges, what we have to do together and in which way we have to come together. So, my introduction, these are three main points that I want to highlight and to raise here, because we are facing very difficult times. We are facing very difficult times with multiple crises, and these multiple crises comes when it comes from within a religious tradition, with something which is simple. And sometimes the Muslims think that when they are in the West and then they are in Muslim majority countries, something which is specific to them, but in fact it's specific to anyone who is believing in God or having a spirituality. From, I spent lots of time in India. I went to spend time with the Dalai Lama. I wanted to understand by being with him what was his take on life, and I spent weeks there, 2 months in India when he was there, in Dharamsala when I spent time. I went to spend time in Brazil, in Latin America, with priests and people who were advocating liberation theology, like Donald Camara, trying to understand, in fact, what they were experiencing and what they were trying to transmit to the people around them. Okay, so my point was that we are facing multiple crises and traveling around the world, dealing with people of faith from within Asian or spiritualities or monotheistic traditions like Jews and Christians and Muslims. We have one big question, and a difficult question, is how in our world today, with all the new challenges that we are facing when it comes to education, when it comes to social life, when it comes with new technology, how can we transmit spirituality? How can we transmit values? How can you transmit the fact that you believe in God and then you want to give it, or to transmit this to your kids? Not imposing this onto them, but at least to make it clear that for them to have the choice, at least they have to have the knowledge. Because no knowledge, no choice. It's impossible. Ignorance doesn't work with and doesn't go with freedom. Freedom has to do with knowledge. So how do we transmit spirituality and meaning? How do we transmit this to and we are all facing a problem when it comes to education. We have also a problem when it comes to authority, and especially from within the Islamic tradition, but we have this in many of our traditions, in who speaks for Muslims and who speaks for Christians today and who speaks for us when it comes to spirituality and when it comes to religious voices. Another challenge and another crisis that we are facing is this reality of having lots of means, but not always clear objectives. So when technology and progress is celebrated for itself, and we have to ask ourselves, what do we want out of this? Progress to do what? To achieve what? What are the final objectives of us promoting progress? To serve businesses, to serve money, or to serve humanity? These are essential questions, and we have to face them. We have to face them, and we cannot face them only by trying to avoid the philosophical questions, and I think that we have to reconcile ourselves with the critical philosophical questions about why, and not only how we are dealing with this. So when it comes to what we have today, what is called the postmodernist reality, the global postmodern reality that we are facing, we are in fact facing double challenges. At the same time, two things are here in front of us that we have to face, and which are not easy to deal with, because they are pushing us to come back to the fundamentals of what we believe in and how we are going to deal with that. The first one, the first reality here that we have, the first reality that we have here when it comes to this postmodern era is this double movement. And the double movement that we have on the one side is something that we are dealing with when it comes to philosophy and when it comes to the reality. It's this deconstruction of the real. It's so complex, the way we are dealing with the real, that the real now is no longer the real. It's when we are talking about order and when we are talking about natural order, all what we have coming from sciences is what you believe is the order, in fact, is just a projection coming from you. In fact, it's a subjective order. When it comes to objectivity, there is no real. The real of the past is no longer the real of today. So we are dealing with a deconstruction of the real. This is one. But at the same time, what we have coming from analytical philosophy, from people who are, you remember Heidegger saying about Nietzsche, was my first PhD, and this is surprising for some of the people because, coming from an Islamic tradition, they say, okay, the PhD, the second one is in Islamic studies, but the first one is about Nietzsche. I wrote a PhD about Nietzsche saying God is dead. And listening to what he was saying, why somebody coming and understood by Heidegger as being the last metaphysician. What we had after Nietzsche is another way to deal with truth, to the point that you have in analytical philosophy, or people like Wittgenstein, for example, saying there is not even truth. So we have the deconstruction of the real and the deconstruction of truth. So you can come and say, you know what, I believe that God is truth. I say, it's a human projection. It's your own subjectivity. What we have now in postmodern era is no truth, no real. So good luck. So when you are dealing with this, you have to come with a critical discussion about how are we going to deal with this? Are we going to deny this by saying this is all atheistic statements, or do we have to deal with our own tradition, say, okay, how are we going to deal with this double deconstruction of real and truth? This is one. So this is a very rationalist take on everything. So it's very much about being rational, to the point that it's so rational that sometimes it's not reasonable. So this is one. At the same time, what we see far from this universe of thought and critical challenges that we have, what we see is something which is exactly the opposite. So you may have, for example, people who have, when it comes to deconstructing the real, sometimes a very dogmatic approach. Last year, it was 2 years ago, I was debating Dawkins. And Dawkins is a very, very harsh atheist, looking at you in a way which is, how come you still believe in God? How come with all your study, you still are there? With a patronizing way, to the point that when you listen to him, sometimes you have the feeling that he's as dogmatic as religious voices. So dogmatism and dogmatic posture is something that we can find on this, there is no truth, no real, to the point that it's so certain that there is no certainty, that you end up being dogmatic about uncertainty. On the other side, what do we have? Something which is the opposite. Very rational here, and what we see in our societies is no longer ideology, and it's as if we are dealing with emotional politics. The new way of dealing with my identity as opposed to all the other identities. So how am I going to define myself? This is going to be very emotional, very much based on fear and security. So here you deconstruct everything with your mind, and here you protect yourself with emotions. The time of less ideology and much more emotional politics. If you listen to what is coming on the political side of our life, in the social life, what we have now is the new era of populists dealing with fear. America first, UK first, in my country, Switzerland, the leading party telling me, born and raised in Switzerland, looking at me and saying, you know what, you are a Swiss citizen, but the fact that you are Muslim makes you less Swiss than the Swiss who are really Swiss. To the point that I have the passport, but my feeling at the emotional level is that they are creating a new category of foreign citizen. They have the passport, but they don't belong to the country. So here we are dealing with a narrative which is not at all rational. It's projective, it's a projection that we have. So we are between dogmatism when it comes to rationality and politics of fear and this nurturing of our identity and being scared of all the people who are around us. So between emotions that come sometimes with a very dogmatic and racist approach when it comes to define ourselves versus the other. This is very difficult. This is coming at the same time with the global world. This is the postmodern between rationalism distracting everything and emotions protecting everything for us. And on both sides is us versus them. It's this binary vision that we have. How do we protect ourselves with our emotion, and how do we protect ourselves by deconstructing everything which is coming from the others. So this is very dangerous, because on both sides it's very difficult to be reasonable. It's very difficult to get something which is called in the Greek philosophy and in all our tradition, wisdom. Wisdom. Wisdom means use your mind. Wisdom means use your emotions, but master your mind and master your emotion. Just try to think, try to get not only your viewpoint, but the viewpoint of the others. You are not the only one to think, and you are not the only one to feel. That's the starting point of what? I just wrote a book. It was a conversation with one of the greatest and last French philosopher, Edgar Morin, who is the one who promoted the notion of complexity, to reconcile ourselves to complexity. One of my books, called The Quest for Meaning, I dedicated the books to the semicolon. Why? Because the semicolon is within the sentence, the fact that you understand that it's a complex sentence. It's complex. So get it. The sense of humility dealing with, can you hear me? No. I don't know what to do then. I'm going to use like this. That's better? Okay, I promise I will keep this here. So I have to play with this and that now. Okay, and then when we are talking about this is what I call this era of uncertainty, and you can see how much it's multifaceted. It's intellectual, but it's psychological. And you can't say to people who are scared, you know what, you are wrong. It's bad to be scared. No, it's not bad, I'm scared. And everything that I see when it comes to my identity, to my society, with people coming and ending up saying, you know what, we better off from being Europeans, we come to Brexit, we have our country far from everything else. You can't just sit down and patronizing and saying these people are wrong. You have to listen. Why? At one point, they are scared of new entities that are stealing the sense that our country is no longer the country that we had before. So we have to deal with the feelings of the people, and we have to deal with the questions of the people out of respect, out of humility, and trying to come together and say, how are we going to deal with these challenges for now and for the future? And as somebody who's a Muslim and listening to what is said around the world, I'm dealing from within with many crises, and I will talk about some of them, and how from within I want to deal with them in order to be able to deal with my fellow human beings, my fellow citizens in my country, to build the future and to build a better society together. We, the new we that I'm talking about, is we in this room. I don't care about your religion, I don't care about your belief. What I care is us being equal in humanity, brothers and sisters in humanity, trying in the name of an accepted diversity to build the future of the country. It takes effort, it takes understanding and self-criticism, because it's always like this that you are able to listen to the others, is also to be self-critical with your own belief, not to deny who you are, but to be able to have a nuanced approach and listening to the other and what they have to say about the future. So when you deal with this, you can, and very often what we are doing in our respective religious traditions or philosophical belonging, we come back to the fundamentals. We come back to the essential of our religion or our universe of reference, and we try to come with the old certainty, the old principles of the past. And it's essential to be able to do this, to come back to the essentials, not to be jailed in the principles of the past, but maybe to try to find the energy, the inspiration of the source to come back to be able to challenge and to deal with the challenges of today. So there is a way to come back to the fundamentals, say, okay, what are the principles, what are the sources, in which way I have to deal with the scriptural sources? Because, for example, today the Muslims, they take the text seriously. There is a Quran that they think that it's coming from God. So they are going to take the text seriously. So to ask them, you know what, in order to live with us, forget about the Quran, it's not going to work. The question is not forget about the Quran, the question is how are you going to deal with the Quran for us to live together today? So my question is not about your principles, my question is about your interpretation of the principles. So the problem is not with the book, the problem is with the readers, as you know. And this is the way in all the religions. By the way, the problem is also with the people who read Marx in a way which was problematic, even when we deal with human beings. And the philosopher that I was referring to, among them, Nietzsche was saying, you know, my great hope is to be able to choose my readers, because some are going to distort everything that I'm saying, which in fact was true. He was read by the Nazi. That's the reality. They didn't understand what he was talking about. He was talking about arts. They took it as extermination. And a very narrow understanding of what he was saying when he was talking about the man that is beyond humanity. That has nothing to do with, you know, race. It has to do with arts. It has to do with creativity. Anyway, just to make it clear that the problem is very often with the readers. Having said that, and trying to get a sense of when we come back, there are ways of coming back that are very dangerous when we deal with our crisis. And I want to highlight some of the dangerous responses that we may have when we are dealing with the double movement of the construction of the real, the construction of truth, and at the same time, emotional politics. Emotional belonging and emotional reaction to some of which is working today. Populism is working. The media and our politicians, sometimes because they lack a vision and courage, sometimes they want to deal with the next election, not with the next generation. They are obsessed with being elected. They have to play with emotions. They have to play with us as citizens. We need to deal with this. The timing of politics is not the timing of people who want to change society, but to win the election. So if you want to win the election, sometimes you have to forget about changing society. So that's the reality of our way of dealing with. This is why many of us, we don't trust them. We know it's all about power at the end of the day. What do you want? Do you want to serve us or to use us? But the point is that we see at the local level things that we don't see at the national level. So the rhetoric on politics at the national level, it's not. And sometimes, and this is what I'm saying, that we need to have national movements of local initiatives that are much more effective than the rhetoric that we have at the national level. If we want to build trust and to have space of trust, it starts at the local level. It's not going to start with the rhetoric at the national level. So this is where us, as citizens, we need to understand that we have to be involved in the whole discussion. Having said that now, and trying to come from within the tradition, when it comes to coming back to some of the references, what are the challenges when we are facing the world that I described, like the global postmodern era that we are living in? Not only in the West, by the way, also in Muslim majority countries, also in Africa, because our culture, the way we are dealing is, it's everywhere. The world culture, the globalization mainly, it's about communication, it's about culture, and it's about economy. So our economy is everywhere. The market is everywhere. The global culture is everywhere. You go to Yemen, and if we go to the textbook, the picture that you have, it's the Titanic. It's not the Yemen culture. It's Hollywood. It's everywhere. So we need to deal with this and try to understand how are we going to deal with this everywhere. So what I'm trying to say here, coming from within a specific tradition, is challenges that are within my tradition, and I'm sure that you will get the echo of what you are experiencing in your own universe of reference. So what do we have now when it comes to this is how are we going to deal with this? There is one reaction that we have. And as Muslims, you will see that in my tradition, when we are dealing with there is no real, there is no truth, and it's all about emotion, what we see at the grassroots level is people doing something which is the easiest way to protect ourselves from this is to do what? To come back to the text and to read the text in a very literal way. Literalism, what we call in other traditions fundamentalists, in Islam it's literalist. It's what we call in our tradition the Salafi. And the Salafi is what you hear about when you hear people talking about Wahhabism. It's what we have coming from the Gulf states and mainly Saudi Arabia. Literal understanding of the text. In fact, what? You are dealing with uncertainty out there, so come to the literal meaning. This is why you get the certainty. It's written, you read it, you implement it, and that's it. Don't ask, don't try to go with interpretation or to reform your mind. It's not going to work. Well, what I'm saying that very often, and I repeat this, by the way, try also when it comes to this discussion not to export terminology. You're not going to be heard by Muslims if you say, you know what, you need a reformation, as if we had it in the Middle East, in the West. We are waiting for you Muslims to go through the same thing. We don't have the same history, we don't have the same terminology. But what we need to do, and this is what I'm saying to Muslims, I don't want to go through a reformation, which is not to follow in the footsteps of Christianity, but we need to reform the Muslim minds in the way they are reading the text. So the first approach that we have, and we have this everywhere, is the reaction to complexification of the real. It's to come back to the simplest, the most simple way of reading the text. Literal. This is one. And we have this everywhere. It's come to certainty. This is the way. So it's an intellectual reaction to confusion. Literalism. We have a second one, which is problematic for all of us. When you don't have a clear picture, what you are going to do is to be very formal in the way you deal with your religion. So in fact, you go to the legal. When we don't know if it's bad and good, you know what? So we now want to be clear on what is good and what is bad. This is what we have coming from the Muslims very often. You have two words that you have heard everywhere, halal and haram. I'm sure that you heard about halal meat. But it's wider than that. It's a projection on let us protect ourselves with the legal. The legal is the best way to protect ourselves from what is alien to us. So a literal understanding of the text and a legal implementation of the text. And it ends up being very formalistic. Why is it so? Because it's a natural reaction. And when we look at our societies in the West, we are doing exactly the same. When we see the alien factor coming to us, we try to protect ourselves with law. In my country, we have 4 minarets. And we have a party saying we are under threat. These Muslims are colonizing us. So we go to our constitution and we ask the people, just with a referendum, we don't want minarets. And we have a law preventing the minarets. So 4 minarets are putting Switzerland in danger. What it means? It means that they are playing with law in order to... This is the natural reaction. When we are scared, the law is our protection. All of us, we are doing this. All our societies. And it's very dangerous because we are adding law to law, and at the end we think that we protect ourselves from the other, and we end up being jailed with our own law because we are adding and adding and adding and losing our own freedom. At the end it comes to us. So the more you add law against the other, the more you add law against your own freedom. At the end we all pay the price. And this is exactly what we have in the Islamic tradition. I'm dealing with some Muslims, dealing with the text in a very literalist way, and dealing with the law in a very formalistic way we have. And first, what they want is, when you don't know how you deal with freedom, start by punishing. That's very easy. Punish. So you go and you think about what we have with Daesh, which is the extreme picture of that, is we start by punishing the people and saying you are a bad Muslim and you are dangerous. To the point that they consider myself as being more dangerous for Islam than the non-Muslims themselves. This is the way they are talking about me. In 2 videos, they were threatening and saying, this guy who is talking about reforming the Muslim mind is more dangerous to Islam than all the others, because he's working from within. You get that? So you are touching here something which is very sensitive. And this is the reaction. We all have to be self-critical with this. How do we deal with our identity? In a very literal way, in a very formalistic way. We want law to protect, and we want understanding to welcome. That's 2 different attitudes. Your mind to welcome, or the law to protect, to say us and them, and this is where it comes. We all are facing this. So within the Islamic tradition, we have the common challenge here. It's something that we find. You can have it in your religious tradition, but you can have it also in your society, in the way we deal with the society. The second thing, which is also the consequence of this, is exactly what I was saying here. Nurturing a mindset where, in fact, as you are scared from the other, and this is what I see also with Muslims, as you don't know who are the other, or you have the feeling that you are targeted, you end up with this the dogmatic mind. What is the specificity of the dogmatic mind? It's a binary vision of reality. I'm right, so you are wrong. That's it. So, us versus them, it's also something that is working on 2 sides. As I said, with our rationality, the way we define ourselves, and with our emotion, it's us versus them. And the best way to define myself is to define myself against. So it's a negative identity. It's not an identity about who you are, it's an identity against who you are not. And my main problem, very often in the West, it's not because the problem they don't like Islam. It's that many people I'm talking to, they don't know even who they are themselves. What do they know about Christianity? What do they know about Judaism? What do they know about philosophy? What do they know about the great questions? I was teaching Victor Hugo in French to students and had to explain to them their own history, because they don't know who they are. So when you don't know who you are scared of who you are not. That's a very important problem here. It's us versus them, because sometimes we are nurturing self-ignorance. And this is why we have to reconcile our students with history, with philosophy, with study of religions and yours. And as I said, I don't want us to impose on anybody to believe in something, but we have to impose on anybody to have the knowledge of everything. more than what we have, at least if we want to be serious about having a pluralistic society. A pluralistic society is based on knowledge. It cannot be based on mutual ignorance. So this is where this us versus them is as emotional that it could be rational in the way we deal with this. And I have this within the Islamic tradition, to the point that you have a discourse always saying Muslims versus non-Muslims. And my starting point starts with terminology. I'm saying to Muslims, I'm sorry, don't speak about people of other faiths as non-Muslims. You wouldn't like to be called non-Christians or non-Jews. We are not the negative of you. And the people around you are Christians, are Jews, are Buddhists, are Hindus. They are not non-Muslims. You are not the reference point. So get this, because it's a way of speaking which translates a way of thinking. Essential. It starts with the way you speak. So this is where we have to be very cautious with this way of thinking, because it's always based on this binary thing. It's us and them. Even in the way people were, in my tradition, describing the world. We have the space of Islam and the space of war. So where the Muslims are in majority, this is why we are in the space of Islam, Dar al-Islam. And when we are outside, it's the space of war, Dar al-Harb. And in the book that I wrote in the 90s, the beginning of the 90s, I'm sorry, that's not the world I live in, because I am at home in Switzerland, I'm at home in the West. So now the world is not two spaces, it's one space where I'm asking the Christians, I'm asking the Jews, I'm asking the Buddhists, I'm asking the Hindus, I'm asking the atheists, I'm asking the agnostics, I'm asking everybody, be a witness of who you are and what you believe in. Be a witness. It's the space of testimony. So it's one space. It's the global world is where you have to be a witness. What I like, one of my old friends who I was with him 3 hours before he passed away, a Christian who was one of my teachers, one of my mentors even, who was suffering so much at the end of his life. He was somebody who, when I was looking at him as a practicing Christian dealing with human rights, is that he was embodying the principles of what Christianity was about. And then he was witnessing. He was a witness. This is what I want. And you know what? A good witness is not somebody who is imposing onto you what he believes or she believes in. He's helping you to be better yourself.
There aren't many witnesses.
Yes, they are. I hope so. So the point here is really to be dealing with this in a way which is once again going beyond this binary vision, this dogmatic mind, and this emotional belonging, which is once again exactly the same. It's us versus them. There is also something that we are dealing with, and we cannot deal with this without addressing this issue, which has to do with violent extremism. Violent extremism, for a Muslim today, you can't just say, I can't sit here and telling you, you know what, Daesh there, the Islamic State, ISIL, they have nothing to do with Islam. That's not true. I am condemning everything they are saying and everything they are doing. But there is out there somebody saying, I'm a Muslim. So am I going to do to him what he's doing to me? He's saying that I'm no longer a Muslim, that I am a betrayer, a traitor to Islam. What I'm saying is that you are a Muslim, but the way you understand Islam and the way you behave in the name of Islam is betraying the very essence of my religion. I have to challenge this. I can't just say it has nothing to do with Islam. These people are quoting verses of the Quran, distorting the very essence. So we have to challenge them with the message of Islam by saying, I'm not going to let you do what you are doing. So we have to speak out. It's a moral duty. And I would say that every one of us, when we believe in something, we have the moral duty to say, not in my name, if something is done in our name. If somebody is saying, in the name of Christianity, I can do this, I can keep, no, not in my name. So I have a moral duty to say here, in the West, but also in Muslim majority countries, I'm banned from 9 Muslim majority countries. Why? Because I'm thinking, people are saying you are controversial. Yes, I'm controversial with dictators. And it's good to be controversial towards dictators. So now, I'm also controversial with some of our governments, because I'm saying to my government in Switzerland, to this government here in the UK, you know what? I'm okay. Let us come together against all the people who are distorting religion. but please don't come to lecture me about moderate Islam when you are dealing with dictators there, the Gulf states who have money, and you want to deal with them because they have the oil and the money, and you are telling me how to be a moderate, while you are dealing with the people who are producing the ideology of the literalists and the people who are nurturing the mindset of us versus them. So I have to be critical. So they don't like this. They don't like us saying this. And when I was banned from the States for 5-6 years, I always said, to be banned by Bush, it's an honor. It's the best thing that could happen. By the way, it's because of him, or thanks to him, that I ended up at Oxford. Thank you, Bush. But the point is that we have to be critical with our own government by saying, we need to be consistent. So we need to be consistent when it comes to me as a Muslim, saying to Daesh, saying to ISIL, you are betraying my religion, you are betraying the principles, and I have to speak out and to say, not in my name. I'm not going to let you do this. But I'm not going to spend all my life saying not in my name, to the point that every time I come to the media, on the media here in the UK, every time I'm asked about what Islam is not. So I wrote a book, the last book is about what Islam is. Just to make it clear that, and please stop putting us on the defensive by saying, we are not violent, we are nice people, we are good people. Okay, please, stop it now. We are condemning, but now we have to talk about our common values, how we can be constructive. Because in fact, at the end, the media are doing exactly what Daesh wants. What do they want? The us versus them. So we are creating this atmosphere of putting people on the defensive, so we do exactly what they want. And at the end, they are using this by saying, we told you, they don't like you. We told you they don't like you, and you have young people saying, yes, they are true, they are right. We are not liked in this country, so they end up thinking that their narrative is the right one. The struggle here, in times of uncertainty and violent extremism, is for us to be able to change the narrative. And say, no, you know what? We are not going to accept the us versus them here. We are coming together, and together we are going to speak out against every single contradiction, our own contradictions and your contradiction. Not only your contradiction, but forgetting about ours. Because we have lots of contradiction in the way we deal with politics, as you know. So having said that, I think here that we need to deal with this as something which is important. And we have also something which is a very important problem. In the book, The Arab Awakening, I was saying it's one of the most important problems and challenges that we have coming from the future, and you know about it now. It's coming even in the UK. Within the Islamic tradition is this fracture between Sunni and Shia. It's in the Middle East, but it's coming here. To the point here that you have some people, they don't want to talk to, even you have people here in the UK saying the Shia are no longer Muslims. So they are confusing political disagreement with religious rejection. And that's very dangerous. We are dealing with this. And this is why I'm trying to work on both sides, with Shia and with Sunni all the time, by saying I'm not going to let this happen, because this is very dangerous. If you end up transforming political disagreement, for example, in Syria. I went to Iran, and in Iran I said to the Iranian government in Iran, what you are doing by supporting Bashar al-Assad is for me against all human rights, because this guy is a dictator. But I'm going also to the Sunni by saying, you know what, you can't just blame Iran and don't deal also with what Saudis are doing in Yemen, in the way they are killing people. At the end, we all have to be self-critical. That's the starting point of a true dialogue. From everywhere, and us also, we need to ask ourselves, why are we so silent about what is happening in Syria and all the refugees and all what is happening now? So quickly to come to three other points that are our challenges, and I want you to listen to what we are experiencing from within, because some of these challenges are also things that you know in your own tradition, in our own societies here in the West. It's another thing that we have in Muslim majority countries. If you listen to what is happening in the Muslim majority countries now, in Turkey, for example, or in Egypt, we have dictators and we have problems within all these societies. Some are losing their freedom. Others are clearly dictatorships. And what we hoped with the Arab Awakening, which was a moment of, joy, people, taking to the street, in the name of justice and freedom and sharing with us all these values. At the end, look at what happened. And I wrote the book in 2012 saying, I'm cautiously optimistic. I didn't buy the idea of Arab Spring. I'm saying, I think you are too much obsessed with politics and you don't get the economic deal behind the whole thing. Economy was much more essential in the whole thing in the region. Because we didn't get it. We didn't get that at the end the Middle East is today a battlefield in economic terms between China, Russia, and the States and Europe. It's much more, in the last 10 years, China multiplied by 8 its economic presence in the region. It means that in the West we are losing ground. So we need to deal with the economic side of the political equation, not with the political vision or perception that we can have, oh, it's all about democracy. If we were for democracy in the region and we really want freedom, we start with the Gulf states, isn't it? But we are not. We are not. We don't care about human rights and women's rights in Saudi Arabia. We are going to talk about this in other countries. But when it comes to the real question, we don't. Because in some way, what is happening there, their stability there is helping our economic interests and geostrategic interests. So we also are quite hypocritical in the way we talk about human rights and democracy. We don't want democracy in Saudi Arabia. I won't. I would like a democracy in Gulf states. I would like to see something happening there with people electing and using this money for the sake of the people, not to buy all what they are buying today, football clubs and things like this. That's not what we have to do. We have to help the people. There is a great deal of poverty in the region, and even, I'm saying, I'm doubly ashamed with what we are doing with the refugees and the migrants. As a European, by what we are not doing, not welcoming the people, not enough. We are happy with 20,000? 20,000 when we have 5 million people now outside Syria, for example, and at the same time, as a Muslim, what are they doing? Muslim majority countries, the Gulf states, not welcoming all these people. Only in Turkey, because this is the first country out there. But what about all the others? It's, that's not humanity. There is something which is wrong in all our way. And because we reacted with one picture, alien on the shore, that we saw this, oh yes, now we have to change. A picture change our mind, our emotions, where the days before and days after, we have thousands being killed and dying in the Mediterranean. That's not humanity. That's not right. There is something wrong in the way we deal with issues here. And we have to deal with this, because this is something which is, we can't protect our wealth if we are not consistent with our humanity. It's not going to work. There is something wrong in this, on both sides. So what I wanted to say quickly is 3 things. In the Muslim majority countries, we have a polarization which is problematic, which came again after the Arab awakening, which is the polarization between secularists and Islamists. It's as if the only discussion that we have, are we going to have Islamists or are we going to have secularists? And both sides are now justifying their very presence by the presence of the other. So the secularists are saying, we are progressive, we are dealing with values, and the Islamists are saying, we are the guardian of the tradition, we are the guardian of our religion. So we are the guardian and you are betraying the very essence of our culture. And then at the end, if you listen to the political discourse, it's very superficial. What is your vision about education? What is your vision about politics? What is your vision about transparency? What is your vision about a cultural project? What is your vision about the economic stability? Stop reducing the political discourse in Muslim majority countries with this polarization between 2 forces, trying to take over power, but with no political vision. There is a lack of new vision in the Muslim majority countries. And we end up from here listening and seeing this by saying what is happening in Egypt is Sisi versus the Muslim Brotherhood. What is happening in Turkey is Erdogan against the people in the street. And at the end, it's a very simplistic way of dealing with politics. This is the reality in the Middle East today. Where are the intellectuals? Where are the people who have a vision for the future, being able to say, this is the project, which is, how are we... At the end of the day, what we need in Muslim majority countries is an educational project. How are we going to teach? Because the problem is how we teach. We are not going to get people being able to be self-critical. It's all about repetition, which is not about critical mind, freedom, about how do we deal with the civil society. Where are the civil societies in these countries? We don't have civil societies in Gulf states. We don't have civil societies even. The only time we saw civil societies were in the time of the uprisings. It was against. But the problem is the power of these movements is that they were against the dictator. But the weaknesses of these movements is that they were against, but we didn't know what they were for. What was the project? And at the end, they didn't have a project. The only project is, we remove you. In French, dégage. So he left. And when he left, we are lost. Because you have a project against, and you don't have a project which is a political project, which is one of the crises that we have, the political crisis that we have here. It's really a time of uncertainty about the political vision. Now, there are things that are deeper than that we are sharing. In the Islamic tradition, it's something that, once again, we have to deal with. When it comes not to politics, when it comes to sciences, everywhere you go, as I said, there is this fragmentation of the real, but we have a problem with our fragmentation of knowledge. And as you have this weekend, you will see people coming from scientific visions, people coming from with philosophical positioning or statements. And if you look at this way of being specialized in our specific field, there is no transdisciplinary approach. So you can be very efficient in your field, but you don't know anything about the others. And at the end, sciences without a holistic conscience is very dangerous. Because you can take one part of the thing and be very, very deep in this, but this could be instrumentalized if you don't have a vision. Remember Einstein saying, if I knew, if I had known about how is it going to be used against us? At the end, we have to deal with this fragmentation of knowledge. We have exactly the same in the Islamic tradition. Within the Islamic tradition, we have a fragmentation of knowledge. We have scholars saying this is right and this is wrong, not even knowing what we are talking about when it comes to economics, when it comes to bioethics, when it comes to very, very deep things. So we have scholars, they read the paper and they tell you this is right and this is wrong. But this is very dangerous. I give you an example. Scholars saying, you know what? When it comes to organ donation, we can do this. When you are poor, you can even sell your organs. That's crazy. Somebody saying this doesn't get it. With the economic order, when you say to the poor people, you can sell your organs and say this is religiously right, you are justifying trading in a new economy of people, rich people, going to countries and as tourists, buying organs and instrumentalizing, exploiting the poor in their bodies. So you get the very small understanding, that's good because you are helping the poor, but you are confirming and justifying a system, an economic system of exploitation in the bodies of the people. If you don't get the whole vision, you are dangerous. So you think you are religiously progressive, but in fact, without knowing it, you are confirming an order which is clear exploitation of the poor in their body. These are deep questions. This fragmentation of knowledge is also something that we have. I was at the European level in the Committee of Ethics, and you can get this. You can get a sense that we talk about things not knowing the economic impact, the political impact, the cultural impact of what we are talking about. So if you give an ethical answer, you need to get the holistic understanding. And the holistic understanding is not what we are teaching now. We are teaching specialization, not holistic understanding. And with this, we can be certain in the detail and lost as to the overall picture. That's the reality of our world today. And I would say that we are facing this the same way. And two things which are important. You know, for 25 years of my life, as somebody who was born in Switzerland, I was saying to Muslims, I am a European, and I'm not going to talk about Islam in Europe, I'm going to talk about European Muslims and European Islam. There is one Islam as to the principles and many ways of dealing with the culture. So I'm a European by culture, as I told you. And I'm a citizen. And I don't want anybody to come to me and to talk to me as a citizen by telling me you are a minority. You know why? Because there is no minority citizenship. You are a citizen or you are not. So I belong to the country. Yesterday I was in Cambridge, and in Cambridge we had a discussion about is Islam compatible with Western liberalism? And I had people who are saying, no, Islam by definition is not. And I started by saying, I'm sorry. I'm as European as you are. I'm sharing with you values. I know it's very difficult to swallow, but I'm as European as you are. So when you talk with me, you have to say we. Don't tell me you. We are together. We are constructing and building the future together. And I was dealing with this, and I keep on repeating this to Muslims by saying, you know what, stop talking about Islam and behave as citizens, helping the country to be a better place tomorrow. And still now, I am reconsidering even the narrative. The narrative is not to stop speaking about citizenship, but I want all of us to get it right. It's very important to speak about our equal citizenship. But if our equal citizenship is at the price of acknowledging our equal humanity with people who are undocumented or refugees or migrants, shame on us. If at the end you think that your citizens have more value than the other human beings, there is something wrong. There is a mindset of normalizing a racist attitude towards the people. When we are, in France I have some problems, especially when the people were reacting by saying, I'm Paris and I'm Charlie. I said, I'm not going to say this that way. If you want me to say I'm Charlie and you want me to say I'm Paris, I want you to say with me, I'm Istanbul, I'm Damascus, I'm Baghdad, I'm Beirut, I'm with all the people who are oppressed. I'm all the innocent and the civilians. I'm not going to cry for my people and to forget about the others. So if my citizenship is creating a hierarchy between us and the other, we cry for ours and we let the people die. And it's normal for them to die in the Mediterranean or in Baghdad or in Damascus because it's them, it's not us. I'm now reconsidering and saying to my fellow European and Western citizens, Muslims and people of other faiths, please, no citizenship at the price of our common humanity. Because now it's time where we have to come to the essential. In the essential years, anybody who is tortured, anybody who is a migrant, who is a human being, who is mistreated, or who is trying to flee bombs and wars there, he is my brother and sister in humanity. And this is as important as being a fellow citizen. That's essential, because this is why we have to come together. And you know what? What am I saying this? I'm saying the essential of the Jewish, the Christian, the Muslim traditions, and the Buddhist traditions, and the Hindu traditions, and every single philosophy. Humanity comes first. One humanity, equal human beings with the same dignity. And we have it in Islam. وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. We find this in the Quran. We give dignity to human beings, not only to Muslims. Human beings, whoever you are, whatever is you believe, first your dignity as human being. And then we speak about your religion. But I'm like a doctor. When a doctor has to deal with a patient, I don't ask you your religion, I don't look at your color, I don't care about your social status, I care about helping you to cure and to get a good health. That's it. Stop, period. This is what we need to get all together. But you understand that we have to deal with a new mindset. So it's not America first, America great again. And when we say in the United States, God bless America and all the other countries, and every one of us, which is the starting point of the universality of our faith coming together. Last point now, it's for me, with all this, what I think that we have to do, and this is what I'm advocating from within the Islamic tradition, in all what I am writing, is going from all these challenges and to try to come with something which is reconciling ourselves with a new cosmology, with a new overall understanding, not to accept this fragmentation of everything, this construction of the real, there is no truth. I want to find something which is consistent. So I don't want to follow in the footsteps of, this new analytical philosophy with dealing with the details. I think that we have to come not with the literal, not with the legal, not with the us versus them, but having an inclusive way of dealing with this. And I would like to see Christians and Jews and Buddhists and philosophers and atheists to come with a new vision, a new cosmology, a new metaphysics, and to say, how do we reconcile this? Not only as human beings, but also because there is something which is essential. We are not going to survive if we continue to treat the environment the way we are treating it. Global warming is a reality. The way we treat animals. I'm struggling with Muslims when they come and say, I have to deal with halal meat, tell me how you slaughter the animal. I have a question before you tell me how you slaughter the animal. How was it nurtured? How are we treating the animals before telling me how we kill him, how we keep it alive? That's my question. So that the real question is, how do we treat animals? How do we treat the environment? So it's an overall vision. And we have to deal with the environment with the way we deal with economics. You're not going to solve the economic problem if we don't deal with the environment. This is connected. So we have to come with a new way of dealing with economy. Not economy with a utilitarian way of how do we make profit, but how do we serve humanity. We have a role to play. So when the people are saying now we have to distinguish between politics and religion, yes, but there is something that I don't want to do. I'm not going to have a religion imposing onto the state, but I don't want the state to deal with us without ethics. We have to reconcile economy and ethics, politics and ethics, science and ethics, not to control science, but to come with ethical goals. What are you doing with this knowledge? Is this a knowledge serving humanity or just the profit? Are we now in the medical sciences dealing with, this corporation, pharmaceutical corporation? Are they dealing to try to serve us or to take money from us? How is it, for example, that you have pharmaceutical corporation not willing to have generic medication and drugs for AIDS in South Africa when people are killed and die 2 million every year because we have the drugs, but we don't want to sell because there are pharmaceutical corporations making money out of this. If you don't care about this, how are you going to deal? Don't we have, as people of principles from your respective religions or your philosophy, to say something? Are we becoming passive citizens to the point that we have nothing to say? I don't want this. This is where I think that dealing with this crisis with our respective philosophy or religion, we have to come together and to speak out and to have an ethical approach towards this. As it was said, now I'm very much dealing with applied ethics in all these fields, in education, in media, in economy, in environment, even in arts, even in entertainment. This is where people are making money and dealing with the worst of our instincts just because it makes money. They are making money out of the dark side of our beings, not elevating us and not helping us to be elevated or at least to be dignified human beings. So my conclusion now is, you understand that the route that I was taking this evening is to be able to have a global understanding of our common challenges and how from within my tradition I'm trying to solve the problem. We need to acknowledge the fact that we have different routes, different ways. The universal is never the monopoly of somebody. If somebody is coming to you and say, you know what, the Western universal value, hold on. Western universal value? There is a contradiction in term. If it's Western, it's not universal. And you have exactly the same. The Islamic universal value, if it's Islamic, it's not universal. The only universal values are the shared universal values, not the monopoly. No one has. So when someone is coming to me and say, our liberal values, say, what are you talking about? You are colonizing values the way some were colonizing lands. So it's not going to work. So this is why we have to understand that every one of us, from within his or her tradition, should do this critical rethinking, trying to work on and deal with all the challenges. And it means that you are going to face within your tradition obstacles, rejection, people saying, you are not one of us. We have to do the work, and we have to work, and everyone from his and from within his or her tradition to do the work. And this is where we will come together. It's very demanding, it's not easy. You have to face criticisms, you have to face people who are not happy with you because they want to be literalists, they want to be legalists, they want to be formalistic, they want to try to trade to what is clear. In fact, by opening up discussion, you are opening, horizons that they don't want to see because it's too complex, it's too difficult to deal with. And still we have to do that. So it's demanding. It takes effort to do that. And it takes commitment. It takes humanity. It takes to deal with our humanity and the intellectual dignity which is important today. And from the singular to the universal, this is where I think we have to come together. To be self-critical is something, which is what I'm trying to do, but I want us, all of us, to come together with this in mind. The humility of being self-critical and the commitment to work with the others. To be open, to try to listen. You know this title of a very interesting book saying, talk to me, I have something to tell you. Talk to me first. Let me know who you are. So this is the critical discussion. We have to come. This is the future. These are the requirements of our pluralistic society. We can't do without this. We have to teach our children to be able to listen, to be able to get more knowledge, and to come with this commitment. You know what we need? Commitment towards knowledge. And I'm saying we need to reconcile our children with 4 disciplines. History, philosophy, knowledge of religion, all religions, and arts and imagination. I think that we have to teach creativity more. Not only be good in mathematics and languages, because it's useful, because you need them to be successful. Imagination, creativity, history, philosophy, as I said. These are very essential disciplines, and we have to come within our tradition, within our societies, we need to deal with this and to come together, so it takes effort. And I would say one word which is important, I will end with this one. We need to be committed, we need to come together, we need to get out of our comfort zone. So I have one question. I came to you here during the last months. How many people coming from another culture or another religion or another background have you talked to or dealt with or interact with? How many? Because to be open-minded, sitting in your chair saying, oh yes, I am open-minded, and you are open-minded in your close circles, it's still very close. It's very, very, very much your people. Get out. Start the journey. And it takes something which is a very important word. To get out of your comfort zone takes courage. Be courageous. We need citizens now being courageous, not people being lazy saying, oh, these politicians are not doing the job. But we are not doing the job either. And I think that this is the starting point. With humility, with commitment, and with courage. Thank you.